Hi, hello everyone! Welcome back to B Version, the channel where we share knowledge to help you develop yourself fully through great books. Music. Today, I'm excited to introduce a very useful psychology book titled Don't Try to Please Everyone. In life, there's a personality type that's very common, people pleasers. Those with this personality are often afraid of rejection, afraid of upsetting others. Even when they have their own thoughts or needs, they can be so hard on themselves that they forget their true feelings. On the surface, it might look like they're being considerate and thoughtful, but deep down, it's really a form of self-denial. Psychologist Karen Honey once said, "Not being able to be yourself is the root of all despair." The habit of constantly trying to please others can trap us in internal conflict and gradually distance us from our true selves. So how can we tell if we're caught in this cycle? And how can we break free? This book gives you a comprehensive look at 8 characteristic behavioral patterns of the people-pleasing personality. It analyzes the deep-rooted causes and provides practical, achievable methods for change. Think of it as a psychological self-rescue toolkit. It helps you recognize your behaviors and the invisible fears within, making your inner self stronger. When you learn to love yourself more, you'll feel freer and more at ease in life. Just as the Buddha taught, before you can love others, you must love yourself first. Now, let's dive into today's topic, diagnosing whether you have a people-pleasing personality. Before undergoing any psychological therapy, we need to assess whether this personality type applies to us. The author lists 26 specific behaviors. If you identify with fewer than 8, you likely do not have a people-pleasing personality, or only at a very low level. If you identify with 9 to 17, you are a long-time people-pleaser. If you identify with 18 to 26, you are in the high-intensity people-pleaser group. So, what are these 26 behaviors? Great! Here's the next section, covering the 26 behaviors. Behavior 1. Not daring to refuse others, fearing that saying no will make them angry. Behavior 2. Afraid of making others unhappy. If they're upset, you feel uneasy too. Behavior 3. Constantly worrying that a relationship will break if you don't agree with the other person. Behavior 4. Every day, trying to meet the needs of many people, feeling exhausted and powerless. Behavior 5. Always going along with others, afraid to express your true thoughts. Behavior 6. Gentle personality, lacking a clear sense of self. Behavior 7. Following rules and orders, never daring to challenge them. Behavior 8. Having many friends but unable to feel their genuine affection. Behavior 9. Afraid to make requests, fearing rejection. Behavior 10. Feeling awkward or even guilty when someone treats you kindly. Behavior 11. Deep-seated inferiority complex, hesitating to act. Behavior 12. Feeling that your efforts aren't good enough unless recognized by others. Behavior 13. Fear of being isolated, wanting everyone to see you as a good person. Behavior 14. Lacking clear boundaries, taking on too many responsibilities for other people's lives and emotions. Behavior 15. Needing approval from others to feel secure in whatever you do. Behavior 16. Forcing yourself with overly high moral standards. Behavior 17. Fear of competition, avoiding decision-making. Behavior 18. Always trying to keep a smile in front of others. Behavior 19. Never showing anger, never speaking up, even if attacked. Behavior 20. Never competing, always playing the weaker role. Behavior 21. Frequently feeling insecure. Behavior 22. Suppressing emotions, afraid to express them. Behavior 23. believing that certain human traits shouldn't exist. Behavior 24. Constantly sacrificing yourself for others, telling yourself it's virtue called dedication. Behavior 25. Frequently criticizing yourself, thinking you're not good enough. Behavior 26. Inner conflicts, unsure how to satisfy both your own feelings and others. These 26 points help you recognize if you have a people-pleasing personality. Self-awareness is always the best starting point to live authentically. When you examine your inner self closely, you'll notice that many unconscious behaviors are actually bound by the people-pleasing personality. In daily life, those with this personality often unconsciously repeat familiar behaviors, rarely realizing it themselves. Now, let's look at the 8 most typical behaviors of people pleasers. Behavior pattern 1. Feeling uneasy when refusing others. The book shares an example. At the end of the year, a female employee was swamped with work. At that moment, a close colleague came to offer help because they had been assigned an urgent task. She immediately felt caught in a dilemma. On one hand, her own work was piling up, and on the other, she feared that refusing her friend would damage their relationship. This is a classic example of how people pleasers feel uneasy when saying no. So, what's the psychology behind this behavior? It's fragility. People who can't refuse others often feel that everything is fragile. Others are fragile. If you refuse, they'll be upset or angry. You yourself feel fragile. If you make someone angry, you'll worry and feel uneasy, and the relationship itself feels fragile, as if refusing could break the bond. This sense of fragility usually stems from childhood experiences. As children, we depend completely on our parents. If parents are kind and loving, the child develops healthily. But if parents are hot-tempered or scolding, the child sees them as powerful and intimidating, feeling small and weak in comparison. This psychological shadow can last into adulthood. As a result, when refusing others, people pleasers often regress to a childlike state, forgetting that they are adults and feel like a trembling child before an authoritative figure. The consequence: exhaustion from constantly trying to meet others' needs while denying your own. Nothing feels fully accomplished, leaving you even more frustrated. How to change this behavior? Because of this fragility, people with this pattern need to strengthen their inner self. This is the core solution. A strong inner self begins with saying goodbye to the past. We are no longer the helpless children we once were. Face and embrace the inner child, the part that still trembles and fears abandonment. This is where the roots of fragility lie. When you stop denying this fragility, you can establish personal boundaries, allowing you to say no with a calm and steady mind. How to refuse others without feeling uneasy? First, clarify what you truly want and what your values are. Once clear, make a firm decision and take responsibility for it. You won't be torn between saying yes or no anymore. Importantly, once you refuse, do so without over-explaining. People pleasers tend to justify every refusal, thinking, if I say no, they'll be upset. But the more reasons you invent, the more insecure you feel. Instead, be honest and straightforward about your difficulties or thoughts. Behavior pattern 2. Worrying constantly about others' moods. People with this behavior feel uneasy when someone seems unhappy, even if it has nothing to do with them. They overthink and try to fix others' emotions, often at the expense of their own well-being. Behavior pattern 3. Fear that relationships will break if they don't agree with others. This manifests as avoiding conflict and always seeking consensus. People pleasers often compromise their own needs to maintain harmony, believing that any disagreement might ruin the connection. Behavior pattern 4. Trying daily to meet everyone's needs, leading to exhaustion. They often take on too much responsibility for others' happiness, spreading themselves too thin, and feeling powerless when they can't fulfill every expectation. Behavior. Pattern 5. Going along with others, afraid to express personal thoughts. Expressing true opinions feels risky. They worry about being judged, rejected, or upsetting someone. So they often stay silent or agree outwardly while suppressing their own feelings. Behavior. Pattern 6. Lacking a clear personality. Being overly gentle, they tend to avoid standing out, suppressing individuality to blend in. This often leaves them feeling unseen and undervalued. Behavior. Pattern 7. Obedience and compliance, never challenging rules or authority. People pleasers often follow rules rigidly and hesitate to question authority. Fearing conflict or rejection. Behavior. Pattern 8. Having many friends, but unable to feel genuine connection. Although socially active, their relationships may feel superficial because they are constantly adjusting themselves to please others, rather than expressing authentic emotions. These 8 behavior patterns illustrate how deeply the people-pleasing personality can influence daily life. Recognizing them is the first step toward change. Once you become aware, you can start developing inner strength, personal boundaries, and self-compassion, which are key to living authentically and freely. Building inner strength. The book emphasizes that strengthening your inner self is the foundation for overcoming people-pleasing tendencies. This starts with acknowledging and embracing your inner child, the part of you that still feels fragile, fearful, or vulnerable. Recognize that these feelings are normal, not something to reject or hide. By accepting your inner fragility, you can begin to establish healthy boundaries. This allows you to say no without guilt, to prioritize your own needs, and to interact with others from a place of strength rather than fear. Clarifying values and desires. Before making any decision, ask yourself, what do I truly want? What are my values? Once you are clear on these, you can make firm, responsible choices. This reduces internal conflict and eliminates the endless cycle of saying yes out of fear or obligation, saying no. Without over-explaining, people pleasers often justify every refusal, worrying about upsetting others. The book advises, be honest and straightforward. You don't need to invent reasons or over-explain. A simple, truthful explanation is enough and shows respect for both yourself and the other person. Handling emotions. Another key strategy is managing emotional responses. Instead of taking responsibility for others' moods, acknowledge them without internalizing. You can care about others without sacrificing your emotional well-being. This helps break the habitual anxiety of, what if they're upset? Gradual practice change doesn't happen overnight. The book suggests gradual practice. Start with small refusals. Express honest opinions in low-stakes situations and slowly expand these behaviors to more significant interactions. Over time, confidence builds and inner peace strengthens. Self-compassion and reflection. Lastly, developing self-compassion is crucial. Regularly reflect on your behaviors and progress. Celebrate small victories and forgive yourself for setbacks. Understand that self-love is not selfish. It's the foundation for authentic, meaningful relationships. These strategies form a practical roadmap for anyone struggling with people-pleasing behavior, helping you live a more authentic, balanced, and peaceful life. Key takeaways. People-pleasing is rooted in fear, fragility, and early life experiences, but it can be recognized and changed. Self-awareness is the starting point. Identifying your behaviors and understanding your fears is essential. Strengthening your inner self allows you to set boundaries, say no confidently, and live authentically. Clarifying your values and desires guides your decisions, reducing internal conflict. Honest, straightforward communication replaces endless justifications and guilt. Gradual practice builds confidence. Start small, grow step by step. Self-compassion helps you forgive yourself, celebrate progress, and maintain inner peace. Final motivational message. Loving yourself is not a luxury, it's a necessity. Before you can truly care for others, you must embrace and nurture your own heart. By recognizing your people-pleasing tendencies, accepting your inner fragility, and practicing these strategies, you can break free from the cycle of anxiety and self-denial. Life becomes freer, more authentic, and more fulfilling. Remember the Buddha's wisdom. Before loving others, love yourself first. So, start today. Observe your behaviors, acknowledge your fears, and take the first steps toward becoming your true self. You deserve a life where your actions reflect your values, not just the expectations of others.